I'm Scott Al Miller. It is Monday night. It is February the 2nd. We are live from Nicaragua, and I still have pneumonia, so we are keeping the show short. I had to work a lot today and lost pretty much my entire day, so I did not have time to get a video out or edited or recorded. Nothing. No time for anything. And so I wanted to get this video out before the end of the night. So thanks to everyone who's hopping on to a short one. I still have, like I said, pneumonia. So hopefully I'm able to make it through this episode. Sorry that I have lozenges in my mouth and tea to be drinking while I do this. I've got peppermint tea. I've got a ginger lozenge, like it's one of the medical ones. You can see whatever this is that they sell here instead of the cheaper version of Halls. I have Halls here too, but this is what I got from the pharmacy. They're not great, but they help, right? They do the job. So sorry, we can ASMR that. No one's on yet. Don't need to announce the show probably because we're doing a short little live, but I'm going to be talking this evening about, and I'm waiting. I may have to run and take Marcella to the hospital. She also has pneumonia and is feeling pretty terrible. And we're not sure what she's going to do. Her plan currently is to go to the hospital in the morning, but she needs some stuff tonight to be ready for that, so I'm not quite entirely sure what needs to be done, and I'm not sure where she's going to stay, so I'm waiting for her to message just so we can know what's up. Janet is on. Hey there, Janet. I was just about to send you the link to let you know that we were on, but here you are. Going to be short this week. We're talking about why ChatGPT does not know anything about Nicaragua and using an example that came up. So, and I'm going to try to keep it short because at some point I'm going to start coughing and then I'm going to start crying. And then there's a fear that I'm going to get sick from coughing too much. But I'm feeling much better today than yesterday. Overall, it's clearly an improvement, but I still have some cough. So it's not the end of the world. And actually right at the moment with the lozenge and sitting here and not talking too much, I kind of can't tell that I have anything, but once I start coughing, then it'll be like, oh my gosh, it's quite bad again. But normally at night, it gets quite a bit worse. But certainly I am feeling dramatically improved over yesterday, which was minorly improved over the day before. So I think I like to think I'm on the mend. I have thought that before, and it was not true. So hoping for the best with that. So today's topic, so this came up because yesterday it was sent to me, and I say this to everyone, right? If you want to have a discussion with me about Nicaragua, don't send me AI responses. Don't get in the chat groups and be like, I checked with AI and like I don't care, right? If you did research and you have a source, and if you find that source because AI helps you find a source, by all means, right? But go to the source. We've put out videos, like, first of all, we're all adults. We should know that AI is not a source for things, right? It can help us find a source, but it is not a source. Going to AI and asking it questions about things that it can know about may be a starting point for some things, but asking it about things that we know it can't know about is intentionally misleading. And so doing research about if you wanted to research, it's my friend's birthday tomorrow, what do they like? It doesn't know. It doesn't know who your friend is. It doesn't have that context, right? It doesn't know those things. I'm going to sneeze from all the lozenges. Almost. It's going to make, I can feel the sneeze. Excuse me. And that was a very long lead up to the sneeze. And so we know it doesn't know who our friends are. We know it doesn't have that secret information about them, right? You can't ask ChatGPT, what was that thing I was thinking of last week that I told no one, right? What was the restaurant I liked when I was 5 years old? If you didn't write that down and put it on the internet somewhere, it can't guess, right? But people think it's magic. They think it knows more about you than you do, and that it can come up with things that have never existed in documentation anywhere ever for things. It can't, right? What does AI do? What does ChatGPT do? It goes at best, right? And quite often, but at best it goes online, does a search like a search engine would, looks at a bunch of stuff with no context, right? It can't have context. It's not part of AI. It can't tell what's real and what's not. It can't evaluate any of that. It goes and looks for top hits and compiles some results, right? And if those hits are accurate, if it finds good sources, so if you ask it to summarize the Battle of Waterloo, right, it can go to Wikipedia, it can go to Britannica, it can go to major universities and pull well-vetted, very well-trusted sources, check them across high disparity areas. And when it goes to Wikipedia, it can check Wikipedia sources and so forth. And it can pull very established data and make summaries of it, generally quite well. So there's clear examples of when it works. And once you describe it and think about it, it should be clear that an AI is able to look these things up in the same way that very poorly educated people can also, and not very bright people, can also look things up. Right? It doesn't take very much to teach someone, right? It takes very basic adulting to know, well, okay, Wikipedia is your most reliable source. And on Wikipedia, it gives its sources. So you can check its sources and see where it's coming from. And it doesn't take too much to see how well supported a page or an article is. Right? It takes very little effort, very little understanding, and that something so obvious, Wikipedia, is the most reliable source we have, and is logically the most reliable source we have, and is openly the most reliable source, and has sources to back up when it is a reliable source. It's not perfect, but it's clearly the best thing we have, right? So people who are able to go to Wikipedia or Britannica or other major sources and just go, okay, I just looked this thing up using common sense, common knowledge that I could have written down in middle school, right? There's all stuff I would have known in 7th grade if they existed in 7th grade. We knew to go to the encyclopedia, right? We knew how to start looking things up. So if a person with a 7th grade education can find these sources, but may take a while, right? May have a hard time understanding them, fine, but can find them, then ChatGPT can too. Right? It knows Wikipedia is very reliable. It knows Britannica is very reliable. It knows the Smithsonian is moderately reliable, right? It knows some of these things. It knows some universities are better than others. They know none of them are as good as the things that we mentioned. It has some weighting to give it some starting point on research, and it's able to pull that stuff and very quickly summarize things that don't have conflicts, things for which there's good published information. But if you ask it for things that don't have information, that don't have a source, what can it do? Right? It doesn't have any magic source of information that you don't have. All it can do is do web searches and pull information from websites that seem reasonable. Once it's not going to Wikipedia, Britannica, and similar, it's just flailing. It's just looking for keywords in sites. And so it goes out, and it will, and something that people need to understand, and I trust all adults know this at this point, right, is that when you ask an AI a question, it is going to give you an answer, right? It doesn't matter if it has that answer or not. It will confidently give you an answer. It won't, under normal circumstances, under average circumstances, attempt to lie. It will, from time to time, flat out lie. It will, from time to time, simply hallucinate. But those are edge cases. That is still enough that if you worked with it for a few hours, it's definitely going to come up. Both of those will come up. But they're edge cases in that it's not the 51%. If it has actual information, it will summarize actual information for you most of the time. But if it doesn't have information, or it has incomplete information, or it has wildly inaccurate information, it will happily use inaccurate information and obviously inaccurate information, obviously non-reliable information, just as happily as it will use an authentic source. And if it doesn't have a fake source, it will hallucinate one. It will fabricate one for you. It will just make something up. So that carries a big risk. By the way, guys, give a thumbs up on the show. We've only got a couple people on here. And just a reminder that I do have pneumonia, and I am chewing a lozenge or sucking on a lozenge while I do this. So sorry for the sounds, but it's very hard to breathe. So you're not going to, in a situation like Nicaragua, have those sources. We know from the most basic research that there are no sources for most things in Nicaragua. There's no official websites with all the information on them. There's no semi-official information sites with the things you wish were official out there that are accurate. In most cases, they don't exist at all. In the rare case that you have some information, it is salespeople putting up known fake information, right? Real estate companies posting houses that may not even exist, prices that are completely disconnected from reality, features that make no sense, and so forth, locations that are fake. And this is 99% of what's out there, right? Is there some real information out there? Maybe, but it's just buried in things, right? And even if you ask the AI something like, what are the rentista requirements, right? Well, there's so many websites that have wrong information on that. And in theory, they're relatively easy to vet. Oh, this is clearly coming from a real estate agent who's has no interest in accurate information. They're just trying to sell me a house. They may intentionally lie, let alone work really hard to be accurate. Okay, I should discount that. This is a legal site. Well, they're trying to get me hooked, so they're not a really reliable source either, because I'm getting the website outside the country, so there's no protections. They wouldn't be held to any legal standard because you can't trace it back to the actual lawyer. You feel like you can, but you can't. So, I shouldn't use that because they're incentivized to give me fake information. Okay. So with a little common sense, we know we can rule out basically everything you find online to find something that you're like, okay, this feels like something I can trust. Now, is it current? Are they accurate? Do they have access to this information? Then it still becomes a big challenge. And so you can rule everything out, but there's very few that you can say, well, these should make it through the filter. But if you have an AI, it's got no choice. It's going to accept all those things. It has no idea that real estate agents can't be trusted and that the numbers are completely fake. And it doesn't know that real estate is completely different in Nicaragua than in other markets that it works in. And it doesn't know that lawyers are treated a different way in country than out of country. And it doesn't know that there's a incentive for them to do these things, right? It doesn't know any of this context. So when it gets misinformation, it doesn't have the context to evaluate it in any meaningful way, nor does it have an incentive to evaluate it in a meaningful way, because the fact that you're asking this of the AI has already told the algorithm that you're not concerned with accuracy. It knows that it's going to get its best response by giving you a confident answer, and probably one that makes you happy. So it wants to determine or guess what answer you want to hear. And it knows that you want to hear an answer and you don't want to be told that it doesn't know, especially in a case where obviously you must have known it didn't know ahead of time or should have known, right? That's not something that someone wants to hear. So it doesn't have an incentive to do those things. It has an incentive to give you a confident answer because it feels very confident you can't evaluate that answer. So why not give you a fake answer? Doesn't threaten it in any way. But giving you a real answer does. Right? Saying, why did you ask me something I clearly could not possibly know? What do you expect me to do? Right? Obviously, the only logical thing is it believes you expect it to fabricate something. So, given all that, we know that we can't ask it these questions. But someone came back to me trying to do a price analysis and used ChatGPT. And I was like, what is this? And they're like, it's from ChatGPT. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Well, obviously, why would you do that? Right? Why would you go and mislead yourself with that? The lozenge is not keeping up. So I did a little bit of research though, because I'm like, these numbers that it came back are obviously insane. But I know it couldn't possibly know, right? It doesn't have comps to work with. It doesn't have access to any prices. It has no way to know. I know it doesn't. We know that none of these things are online. We know these things aren't public. Even the Nicaraguan government doesn't have access to these numbers, right? So we know these numbers don't exist. So that it just whips off some numbers. Obviously, it just fabricated them. Now, why, how, where, we don't know. But we know it didn't have a real source to work with. So whatever it's giving us is really, really random, right? So the area that was being evaluated, I had my own guesses as to values there, but I didn't have a way to really show them. But I had so I think that it's like 5 to 10 times the real price, right? That ChatGPT was quoting. And I want you to think about that number, 5 to 10 times, right? I'm not calling ChatGPT out for being off by a small percentage. I'm not saying it's close. I'm saying this is crazy, right? Imagine if you were looking at a house in the United States and it was $500,000, but you asked ChatGPT what it should be, and it's like 2.5 million. Obviously, 5 million, right? Would not be unreasonable. You'd be like, what? Why would it say that? Right? I get that if it's a 500,000, it might have said 400,000 or 600,000, but this is insane. So instead, I went to places where I knew what values were, right? Empty lots, existing hotels, multiple markets. I went around the country in places that I knew quite well and asked ChatGPT to do the same evaluation in those places. And what I found was interesting. What I found was there's actually a consistency to what it was giving, in my opinion, right? Now, this is one, it gives huge ranges, right? It doesn't commit to anything. So it's really useless in that way, right? I gave it like some spec and it was like from 600,000 to 1.05 million. I'm like, that is a range of complete inutility. But okay. But what I was able to do is come up with what my estimates were. And in many cases, like I really knew, like I've been involved in these transactions many times. Now, important to note, if I am involved in a transaction, I know how high something has sold. That doesn't mean it wasn't overpaid for. We only know that the market is that or less. It doesn't mean that the market is that, just to be clear. But it gives us something to work with. So when I looked and kind of took a kind of soft number and kind of took its range, what I found was consistently from my estimate of value, my knowledge of what was paid rather than what could have been paid, ChatGPT was consistently starting at roughly 500%, but consistently. So that was interesting that the amount that it's off isn't completely random. It seems to be linked to something. Now, as you watch it, it generates its prices from just a bunch of the exact places we warn about, right? It lists exactly which real estate places it's going to and where it's getting that number. And we're like, we know those places don't have that information. We know that what they post is not true. We know there's a bunch of things we know. So we know it's pulling misinformation. But using that misinformation, it's coming up with something that, at least in the examples I used, were actually useful for backtracking and figuring out the numbers. So in all the places that I knew, I was able to say, well, I knew this price was X and it recommended 5X over and over and over again. And then when I went back and looked at the numbers that were given to me initially by someone else, and I said, if I divide these by 500%, if I take 20% of the price, suddenly we were back to the numbers I had started as a proposal. Then I said, I think this is what the property is worth. And so that gives some credence to my theory, right? Because on one side it was consistent, and when we didn't know, it matched what our guess was. So I wouldn't use ChatGPT as a consistent 5 times. Like if you get a range that it's 5 to 10 times, it seems to be about the range that it gives, 5 to 9 times. But one, the takeaway is don't ever, ever open ChatGPT or any AI and ask it a question if you don't know exactly how it's going to get those results, right? Don't ask it the question because it will always give you a confident fake answer every time. 100%. That's a guarantee. That is how it is built. That is its job. But if you do expect that 5 to 9, 5 to 10 times in property value is what it's projecting here in Nicaragua across the whole country. So it's interesting in that way. CH Dice says, hello, Scott. What do you think about how much of a big deal they are making in Nicaragua about the cold front? Other than it hit 65 here last night, I don't think we're actually making it that big of a deal about the cold front. The expats are joking about it a bit because it is. I think this is actually I think last night was the coldest I've experienced in country yet. But it's not that cold. I haven't had a single Nicaraguan mention it to me. So to me, no one's making a big deal about it, but maybe they are. Silver J56, Nicaragua, almost paradise. Let's keep it that way. We only want good people who are smart enough to visit here and see it for themselves, which mostly is the only people we get, but it's a good point. Getting people to come and visit is important. Diego says it's mostly memes, referring to the cold front stuff. Yeah, a lot of people posting jokes. I noticed a lot of people posting about snow in Tegucigalpa, the capital of Honduras, which is a lot colder than here, a lot farther. It's farther north, that doesn't matter. It's much farther high in altitude, elevation. And but those were generated last year. There was some meme going around pretending that there was snow in Tegucigalpa in late 2025, just people playing with AI. Finally, it's gotten good enough to look like the city with snow. And so the ones going around now seem to just be those reposted. Jan says, I'm gold too. I think she means she's cold. She says her husband is cold. She had to make hot water bottles. Okay, that's funny. I slept with the windows open, and I found it very comfy with me and my pile of dogs. Summer says, my amigo Tony says Esteli is cold tonight. I guarantee Esteli is cold tonight. Not snow cold, but it's going to be cold. Yeah, definitely cold. I wish I was up in Esteli or Matagalpa, Hinotega, and getting like cold. That would be so nice. Hinotega is currently at 56, but only heading down to 54 tonight. Is that as low as it's getting? 53 on Saturday, but 54 tonight. That's good. It's a cold week, though. They're only 70 degrees at their high today, only 77 for the high of the week. What is Esteli? Normally warmer. Currently 59, heading down to 56. I mean, it's definitely cold. No question. Here, we were 89 during the day, just going down to 70 tonight. So last night was 65. So that was nice. That was like sleep with the windows open. I really noticed because like we had some rooms that are air conditioned during the day, and you walk out of them, and the house was much colder than the air conditioned rooms. You're like, oh, that's very silly. How long have we been on? Oh, 25 minutes. All right. Diego says, I'm just happy I can turn off my AC and save some electricity. Chana says, yeah, I can't type. I meant cold. We never use air conditioning, so we are not adapted to sleeping in cold places. Yeah, I do still sleep with air conditioning because of the dogs. But I like when it's cold air, especially. That's one of the reasons I might be feeling better today. The air conditioning dries you out and is not good for pneumonia. But the pile of dogs is good for pneumonia because they give, it's like laughter is the best medicine. Actually, dogs are the best medicine. But the fresh air, definitely very good because it's a lot more moist. Yeah, I know the cold front kind of makes it dry, but not as dry as the air conditioning. But it's nice. I haven't had AC on here all day. Diego says, I would love the climate to stay like this forever. But alas, whoa, that was my dogs running into the tripod. That's the problem with the open door. I have the doors open, right? Even in my office, which has no windows, like I don't even need a cross breeze. I just have the door open and it's very comfy. The lozenges I'm using, some of them are the medicine ones. Some of them are these like candies. Will it focus on this any chance? They're delicious mints, but they're kind of soft, so you can suck on them, but the moment you start to do anything, you just end up chewing them. Partially because there's gum in the middle. I just realized. Diego says, what do you think of air purifiers? Worth it? So the problem here is that there's so much fresh air that you're constantly getting fresh air from the outside, so the air purifier doesn't do much. If you have a house that's sealed and you're really on air conditioning like all the time, yeah, an air purifier can do a bit. Your air conditioner already is purifying the air a little because of the screen, but an air purifier can do a lot more. In Doral, I don't know how the air is. Up here in Leon, we have a ton of stuff in the air. So we basically are always on fresh air, so it wouldn't work. Like, I've definitely thought about it, and there's just no way, because all the doors are open all the time. You would just ruin it all the time. But if you are closing up your house and you're here like in Leon, we get so much dust, so much smoke, so much just stuff in the air that, I think an air purifier would do a lot. If I go out at night with an LED flashlight and just turn it on, you can see a breeze of stuff in the air blowing past the flashlight. There's so much stuff in the air. So I think an air purifier would be good. All right, we're coming up on half an hour. Maybe we've already hit it. No, not quite. And I'd love to stay on and do a long one, but I do have pneumonia, and as soon as I get a tickle in my throat, I will be coughing horribly, and I may be taking, I don't think so, but may need to take Marcella to the hospital tonight. She is definitely going to the hospital in the morning in Managua. She has pneumonia like me and is much worse, obviously is much more susceptible and at risk from that. So need to plan for that. Yuri Neal, 5091. Hi, Scott. I just got to the party. Sorry, this is off topic. Can you tell me what private airline you used to take your dogs to Nicaragua when you moved there? I honestly don't know who it was. That was so long ago. It was a private charter out of Fort Lauderdale Executive Airport. That's all I know. But chartered planes, they're going to be pretty similar. Edwin says, hey, Scott, forgot to tell you last Thursday's Nika Live, because on Friday evening, final section 4 of Pista Héroes de la Insurrección, La Rebelo y el Reguero in Managua has been opened. That's awesome. Katie Flores says, 28 degrees here in Central Florida. Oh my gosh, wow, 28 degrees. Silver J56 says, get well soon, Scott. Thank you. Diego says, my room is never open to the outside. I run the AC almost 24/7. Then a purifier may work for you. Chad says, get better. Katie says, get better. Your Neil says, thank you. Feel better, my friend. Thank you. And Marcella, too. Thanks, everyone. Really appreciate it. Sorry we got to hop off with so many people on and everything going on, but I don't want to be suddenly hacking and have to be like, oh my gosh, I have to go. But I am feeling quite a bit better today, and gonna try to keep it up. How do you deal with low temperatures this last few hours in Cerro Mogoton, located in Nueva Segovia near Honduras, is at -5 C. Wait, what? That's crazy. We only got down to 65 here yesterday, which is just glorious. I slept with the windows open and no blankets. I was just like, this is so nice. So, I grew up in New York. I used to sleep in the winter with the windows open in New York, right? So below freezing is normal. I lived in Michigan for a little while, and at one point I was sleeping, and it was one of my best nights of sleep ever. Huge window right at the foot of my bed open. I woke up. Now I had blankets and stuff. I woke up completely covered in non-melting snow. That means that the top of my blankets were below freezing, and that was so comfortable. I love how that feels. So for me, this is absolutely fantastic, right? While I'm pretty much adapted to Nicaraguan temperatures, I'm out in the 90s, right? And it doesn't bother me at all. I still prefer cold temperatures, so these are really good. Diego says the new roads are fine, but the amount of traffic lights drives me nuts, and I just avoid them. I traveled faster there before. All right, my cough is coming, so I'm signing off. Thanks, everybody. Have a good night. Remember to like and subscribe. You can buy me a coffee.